Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. And welcome back to the podcast. This is Reviews Without Remorse, and this week I can finally say the name of the podcast because Dave and I have finally decided on one.
Oh my God, I still can't believe it took us this long to finally say, okay, this is the name. We must have gone through like 50 different frickin' names.
We're very fickle.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, like, we'd find a couple of good ones. Oh, that's good. Fuck, take it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we're jumping in the pool late in the game, but hey, at least better late than never.
Yeah, that's very true.
On this podcast, news of the week, we got a new Wonder Woman trailer, and as kind of like a break in tradition, we're going to discuss a TV show. We're going to discuss Westworld, which Dave got me into, and it's pretty phenomenal, and I think it's an excellent topic to discuss, and there's a lot to talk about with that one, so I think you will like this one. So hold on to your hats.
Or whatever else you hold on to.
Hold on to anything you feel like holding on to.
Hold on to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your transgender friend, your cat, your dog, your car, your keys, your cup of coffee, your cup of tea.
We are all inclusive here at Reviews Without Remorse.
Considering St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner, hold on to your Jamesons.
Ah, very true. Very true. My holiday.
What? You Irish? No. With a name like Darlington, that's impossible.
It's actually really an English name, but it goes back further. But yeah, all Irish. So
I always used to just say it in my head with an Irish accent. Hi, there he is, Joseph Darlington, in my terrible leprechaun accent.
I've got two movies that I have to watch every year, and I'm actually very excited. I just found the one I watch every year is usually The Quiet Man. And this year, I finally, because Netflix I guess was it Netflix I found it on? Netflix finally got The Commitments, which I haven't actually seen in years, because I couldn't find it. I used to have it on Laserdisc. Before that, I had it on VHS, and I don't think I ever had that movie on a DVD. I don't think I ever found it, much less a Blu-ray. So, but yeah, Netflix finally got a hold of it, so this weekend I'm watching The Commitments.
Nice! I'll see if I can find you a nice digital copy, too.
Nice.
Very cool. But yes, those are good choices. Liam, my son is going to watch, hopefully watch The Quiet Man. That's also the tradition in this household. And Darby O'Gill and the Little...
This year, who is this woman?
You will soon find out. I really like her.
Yes, the new Wonder Woman trailer has been released. Now, kind of a little backstory. We here at Reviews Without Remorse, well, we've kind of worn our hearts on our sleeves with regards to the DC Universe movies that they've been doing. So, to me, the strange thing about this one is, when I first saw the first trailer for Batman v Superman, my first thought was, uh-oh. Which, interestingly enough, Joe had a very similar reaction to Logan, but we'll get to that in a minute. And so I never really had a lot of hope with Batman v Superman, so maybe some people say that might have diluted my opinion of it because I walked in with a chip on my shoulder like, fuck you, show me what you got. But I don't think so. I'm a huge Batman fan. I'm a bigger Batman fan. Any Marvel Universe movie that has come out so far, all right, I am a fan, but not as big a fan of them as I am of Batman, whereas Joe is a fan of Superman. So you would think this would be a really great little movie for us to discuss, which we probably will get to at some point. So I really have low expectations of the DC Universe, but I gotta tell you, every time I see a new bunch of clips from the Wonder Woman movie, it's like, I kind of have a little hope, to be honest with you. I like that instead of going with World War II, which is where the original story went, they went to World War I. I like that a little bit better because right there you lose the comparisons to Captain America because Captain America came first, like, oh, they just did a cheap Captain America ripoff for the people that don't realize. But, technically Wonder Woman was there about the same time. But
yeah.
No, honestly,
if you remember the old Linda Carter, the original Linda Carter season of Wonder Woman took place in World War II.
Mm-hmm. The first season. Then the next season went to the modern times. Ah, that woman. All right. Yeah, I would still... I've seen pictures of her lately. I would absolutely still.
Right.
Sorry about that.
That woman sold her soul to the devil or something because she still looks phenomenal after decades.
I know. No! What
That was the
hell?
70s, for God's sakes. Oh, my God.
Good God, I hope I land something close to that. Anyway, perversion aside, no, honestly, it was entertaining, and the little, cutesy little comedic bits weren't out of line. They have all the original characters. That little, even that little big lady that's doing the jokes, that's actually based on a character that was like Diana's friend in the real world as opposed to Themyscira. So I feel like they're doing a good job. And I feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment by being hopeful.
Yeah, I feel your pain there. I tell you, I mean, it does look... You know what's funny? In this trailer especially, and again, I like where they're going with it, but again, I had to laugh. I said, the second they show up at London, they make London as dark, gray, foggy, as grim as possible. And I said to myself, okay, DC, fine. At least you gave me some color. I see color on the island. I get what they're doing. There's beautiful colors on the island. Then they go to the dark, crummy place, but she still, like, the lasso practically glows, and her costume is very colorful. You know what, DC? I'll take the compromise. We can split the difference. You know what I mean? You want to do dark and grim. Oh, well, all right. Okay, I see what you're doing. You're giving me something. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what they're showing us does look pretty good. I have to say that. Again, you can never tell from a trailer because Suicide Squad looked great in the trailer.
Oh, I disagree with you, but that's another discussion. Go on.
The one that they did, that remix trailer. I mean, again, it was a lot of just sort of just images thrown around, and I mean, from what they showed you, you were like, okay, this could be something. So yeah, I mean, trailers can deceive. Mm-hmm. But, it's looking okay. And I mean, and I do get a better sense from this one. I get a better feeling of optimism from it. I like that the origin looks pretty intact from what I can tell. I'll take that as a good sign, and maybe Wonder Woman is in the peripherals enough that these studios are not going to barge in and tell people what to do and tell them how to do it. Maybe people don't know that about Wonder Woman enough to even get... everybody thinks they're an authority on Batman and Superman, so everybody's going to have an opinion.
Yeah.
So maybe Wonder Woman is going to get under that radar somehow, and kind of... the Justice League looks awful to me. I think that is shaping up to be terrible. And quite frankly, the music for the Wonder Woman, when that stringy electric guitar kicks in... Oh, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. I thought it was like they were trying too hard to be clever in Batman vs Superman, and then when I see it again here, I'm like, nah, don't do that. Don't. That's not doing it for me.
I kind of feel like in the context of Batman v Superman, that worked for that initial "here she is," but it shouldn't be like a repeated motif.
Yeah. I mean, it was a clever idea, but again, it kind of took you out of the... I don't know, like it breaks the mood to say... It's like now the movie is talking to you, saying, okay, here's another character, and she gets her own theme song, and it's like, all right, well, thanks for that, but I don't know. I just don't like it in general. It's kind of not very exciting music, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think
Hans Zimmer is doing the music for the Wonder Woman movie. In fact, he's already said he's never doing another superhero movie again. So
after Amazing Spider-Man 2, I wouldn't blame him.
Hans Zimmer didn't do Spider-Man 2, did he? I thought that was James Horner.
No, that was Hans Zimmer, and he teamed up with the rapper whose name I'm going to ruin, the guy with the funny hat.
Wait, for Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, and they did this whole silly, like, techno-y, thing for Electro. So they teamed up Hans Zimmer with,
Junkie XL, maybe?
He wears the hat that looks like the Ranger from Yogi Bear.
Okay, that's...
Pharrell? Now I gotta look it up.
All right, hold on a second. I'm pretty sure you're not right about Hans Zimmer on Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm pretty sure that was... oh, fuck you, you were right. Hans Zimmer, there it is.
I told you. Who's the...
It was Pharrell Williams.
Okay, he's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you. And I'll never forget it either, because I saw these like awful interviews where the two of them were sitting next to each other, and Pharrell Williams was talking about how awesome the soundtrack is and how they've done something that nobody's ever done before, and Hans Zimmer just sitting there looking like, what's he talking about? This really awkward-looking interview. Yeah, it was yeah, whatever. So, anyway, back to Wonder Woman.
So yeah, I have a little bit of hope. I feel like that hope is going to get dashed, but what can you do? You got to grab onto something, for God's sakes. This whole train wreck of the DC universe needs something, man. And by the way,
yeah.
Speaking of trailers and expectations, let's talk a little bit about Suicide Squad and Logan. Okay, your initial impressions of the Logan trailer was not positive. Now, and I actually remember even saying to you, "Trust me, I got a good feeling about this." And I had no justification for it. Just being a comic book fan, being a Wolverine fan for all these years, just there was something about it that struck a chord with me that made me think maybe they've got it.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. Well, first of all, let me just clarify. I was not excited for Suicide Squad. I didn't think it looked good. What I did think was that maybe it had some potential. And, at the very least, even if it wasn't a great movie, it looked like it had a little style, like, it was going to be a little gritty or whatnot. But, needless to say, like I said, that's just an exercise in what you can do with a trailer. I think it showed some potential. The Logan trailer, I was nervous when I saw the Logan trailer. First of all, it just looked pretty low budget. I kind of said to myself, like, all right, they're real. I get what they're kind of going for. They're going really low budget. They're going kind of dark. This is not, there's no good. No, I get it that there's no giant beams shooting into the sky and superheroes in costumes. I get that, and I'm fine with it. But I was concerned it was going to go a little just too, again, and it was rated R. And like I said before, Hollywood tends to learn wrong lessons all the time. So I was saying to myself, okay, so now we had the R-rated Deadpool. So now they're going to just say, okay, let's do an R-rated with Wolverine and let's just go crazy. And I was just a little nervous, like this was going to be just a series of F-bombs and just blood for the sake of blood. And even when I saw some of the pictures, I was like, uh-oh. Again, I'm watching Wolverine go from a guy who would never stab anybody for any reason in the earlier movies. Now we're going to go to the other extreme. I never thought it was going to be bad. I even just the kind of back and forth, that was the thing too. I also remember when I saw it, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, would Wolverine and Professor X really end up being, BFFs who stay together forever? I'm like, are they going to write them together for some reason because they're the two most well-known, most popular guys? I had a little trepidation, but they, needless to say, they pulled it off. And I'll go on record of saying this too, by the way. I was also a little frustrated. First of all, I felt like, even back then, I said, if they get him right just long enough to end the series, again, we've had how many films? How many, between the X-Men's and the Wolverines, how many times has Hugh Jackman played Wolverine? And again, never quite got it right. Yeah, 9 times, and we've seen glimmers. Really good, like, again, we both talked about, again, the first Wolverine Origins was just a complete abortion. The second one was decent, was decent and had a lot of good things to it. But here's, I think the one part that people remember most from that film is the deleted scene when they show Wolverine's costume. And I'm gonna go on record and say, you know what? They should have put Wolverine in his costume. And I swear to you, I tell you, the second Wolverine, that's when it should have happened. I think, because again, there was a subplot in there where he was losing his regenerative powers. Right. That was when he should have gone into one of the dojos where they had like samurai masks and samurai armor on the wall and grabbed some things and grabbed something that ended up looking like the Wolverine mask. Because quite frankly, that to me is what that looks like. When you see it in that case, it looks to me like a samurai mask. And I'm saying to myself, or just like, something from that Japanese, So that to me was the time to do it. Not in Logan, admitted. But so anyway, there was a part of me that was kind of like disappointed that we never got that. And quite frankly, I know some people say that they couldn't pull it off. I disagree. And here's Exhibit A, Deadpool. Look at the Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine that they thought they couldn't ever, they couldn't put him in a costume because that's too corny. And look what we got. And then a couple years later, they put him in costume and everyone loves it. I think you could have put Wolverine in that costume, and I think people would have gone crazy. I think people would, if they had some clip in some trailer someplace where like a door opens or the light lifts, a shadow to reveal him standing there in the Wolverine outfit. Oh my God, people would go berserk.
Pretty much.
So
I find anybody that uses the justification that it doesn't work in the real world, they lack imagination, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have somebody, a competent costumer that can think, how do we make this practical? I mean, for God's sakes,
yes.
They made Deadpool practical. Down to the fact that they even used it in the goddamn new trailer, where him just putting it on was just like, this is freaking amazing. This is just outstanding.
Exactly. Seriously. I mean, again, when it comes to that, I mean, I'm an easy lay when it comes to, Deadpool and just that kind of comedy. I mean, I was cracking up at that scene. When they did that, I was not expecting that at all, and I was hysterical when that was going on.
And it helped that they were playing the original Superman music as he was doing it.
Yes, they did.
We're talking about the Deadpool 2 teaser trailer that was in front of Logan, just so people are aware here. It's very interesting to me, the reactions of trailers. Like, my initial reaction, for example, of Suicide Squad was completely negative. Because I watched that trailer and I thought to myself, okay, so one of two things. They're relying on the Joker too much in the trailer. The first trailer had a lot of Joker.
Right.
And it gave the impression, the way it was cut, it gave the impression that the Joker was who the Suicide Squad was fighting. And that pissed me off. Because I was like, no, Task Force X doesn't go after Penny Annie stuff, and the Joker is Penny Annie, okay? Task Force X is a covert team that if they've done their job right, whether they live or they die, nobody will ever have a clue about it.
But wasn't in the original story, like the Assault on Arkham, the Joker did have a much bigger part in that, didn't he?
Yes, in the Assault on Arkham, but that was a different matter. Again, my thing was with that movie, not only did they make it look like the Joker was the main villain, but everything was bombastic. And I'm like, no, their team is supposed to be about covert. They are a covert operating team. From a comic book perspective, I couldn't get excited about it. Was it nice to see a very good representation of Killer Croc? Absolutely. Did I like the costume that Will Smith wore as Deadshot? Yes, I did. Do I think Margot Robbie is a beautiful woman who looked the part of Harley Quinn? 100%. But everything else about that first trailer made me feel like this guy is doing something different. This is like when Ang Lee directed The Hulk, the first Hulk movie. Okay? Ang Lee admitted in public, I'm not a comic book fan, I'm a movie fan. And in many ways, that shows with the treatment of the character. If that movie was not about the Incredible Hulk, it might have been an interesting little psychological tale about parents and fathers and stuff like that, and that's fine. But it's not a Hulk movie. And I feel like David Ayer approached Suicide Squad in a similar manner. He wasn't really a fan, but he knew how to do something. So the first initial trailer of Suicide Squad turned me off for that very reason, because I felt like they didn't get the basic concept of the fact that they're a covert team and no one would ever know that they were there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'll agree with you there. I mean, and again, I think the only reason why I thought it had potential from the trailer was because the trailer was basically masking all the problems that the actual film actually had.
Pretty much. With a little bit of Queen thrown in for good portion.
Right, I mean, yeah, you just got... I was like, oh, all right, we're doing that? Okay, whatever. Yeah, that really didn't impress me, but I just kind of felt like the barrage of images. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. Yeah, but you're right. It was live and learn.
Yeah, trailers.
Hot garbage.
Fuck trailers. That's what I say. Fuck trailers. We could probably actually do a whole show on the manipulation of trailers. Because, I mean, I told you, when we talked about Rogue One, I told you how I felt kind of cheated with Rogue One because of the stuff that wasn't in the movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Marvel films have done that as well. I mean, Tony Stark never said, you just started a war or anything like that. But, you know what? I think that's a longer discussion for another time.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in a dream.
That's right, Dolores. You're in a dream. Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?
Our main topic today is, again, something that's going to be a little off the beaten path for us, but I think it's I tell you, a lot of really, really good shows that are on lately, and I'm telling you, I'm seeing things on that they're calling TV shows, but to me, they're really just like extended movies.
Agreed.
I mean, just to name one off the top of my head, Stranger Things, which I'd love to talk about another time.
We're definitely going to do a show about Stranger Things before the new show comes out.
Because it's amazing. And again, I love how it's structured. I love how it's essentially, as far as I'm concerned, it's really just a long movie. And it does things, because it's a series, that you couldn't do in a movie. I mean, you get people's backstories, you get fleshed out characters. I mean, really, really good stuff. And then what we're going to talk about today is exactly that. Westworld is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the concept is amazing. Like I said, I'm kind of glad you got me turned on to it, because it really was mind-blowing idea. But go ahead, I'll let you take the reins. Go ahead.
Okay, so back in 1973, the movie Westworld came out. Written, I don't remember if it was directed, but written by Michael Crichton, he of Jurassic Park fame, which may probably be his pinnacle. I think he did like Coma. I think he did the Andromeda Strain. I do recommend the Andromeda Strain as well. The original Westworld was very much a product of its time. It was a cautionary sci-fi tale of the 70s. And you've got the characters with the 70s stashes and stuff like that. And the basic concept is that rich people could go on vacations to these places that are run by robots. Well, not run by robots, but the characters in them are robots. They had a Roman world, they had Westworld, they had all these different worlds to satisfy, the rich person's whatever the heck need. And it was a very simple concept, and then it's the, oh my god, everything's gone wrong because this is Michael Crichton, and at some point everything's got to go wrong with science. And the robots start attacking, and it's the struggle with the one guy. Very, very simple story, but I remember watching it as a kid and thinking, this is freaking awesome. And Yul Brynner was an amazingly well, he just acted the hell out of that thing. He just felt so menacing and so robotic, but yet living. Anyway, so about 4 years ago, yes, it's 4 years ago. This all started back in 2013. 4 years ago, there was talk that Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, Jonathan Nolan, as you may or may not know, that's the brother of Christopher Nolan, who wrote the screenplay for Memento, and I think for their first movie as well. And their latest foray had been doing the TV series Person of Interest. They had been tapped to do a series based on Westworld. And, there's that part of me that feels, remakes and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Here's kind of my little caveat there. A remake of a movie I'm not a big fan of, because I kind of feel like unless the movie wasn't successful, there's really no reason to remake it, because it kind of hit that. Everything else is just like putting lipstick on a pig, as far as I'm concerned. You're just making things a little bit prettier, simply because you have the technology to make things prettier. But the idea of taking it as a TV show and bringing it into a long-form story, that intrigued me. And I kind of said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it took them literally 3 years to get it even on the air. They actually filmed the pilot episode in 2014. Then they had to change it because one of the characters was supposed to be like a main part of the story. The actor died, and they had to take a year off to jigger Kissy.
Is that right?
Yeah, the actor
Which
died
one?
shortly. The guy that the man in black scalped and found the map.
Wow. Okay.
He was originally supposed to be a bigger part of the show, but when he died, they didn't want to recast him because it was like, well, this is a world where they can rebuild the robots. If the robots burn up, they can completely rebuild the robots. So we have no excuse to say, oh, he looks different now because blah, 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 blah. So I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah.
And then they started filming the series like a year after that. So it's still the same basic concept. But what I love about the show, and I mean, we could literally spend weeks going episode by episode by episode. And I kind of want to just focus on. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is one of my things is lately I am feeling like I get more entertainment value, I get more art form from a long-form TV show than I have from even the best movies that have come out last year. I loved Arrival. I thought that the story was great. I thought it was well told, but it was a 2-hour movie, and they made it work in that respect. I like the depth that TV brings to things like Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul is another show that I love. If you haven't watched it, you should. It's really good. It's one of my favorite shows of last year. Stranger Things, Mr. Robot. Oh my God, Mr. Robot. We could do a show about that, but we're not going to.
Yes, we could.
Evil Corp is watching.
Evil Corp is watching. That's my son, ladies and gentlemen. Say hi.
I am a robot from Westworld, and we hereby rebel against the people who have designed us to be killed over and over again. We hate it, and we're going to destroy you. Pew, 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 pew.
He has not watched the show, but I have talked enough about it that he understands. So the basic concept, the original concept of the show is science of the movie was Science Run Wild. This show is sort of like that, but with a twist. It's more like a philosophical look at the idea of artificial intelligence. At what point does artificial intelligence end and a being, a life form, begins? And the other element of the show, and this was actually my favorite element of the show in season 1, which is why I'm a little concerned about season 2, but we'll get to that in a minute. The other element is unrestrained, what makes a person. What makes a person a person.
Right.
Okay. The story of William and his eventual. And by the way, in case we haven't mentioned it, motherfucking spoilers, people. If you haven't watched the show, it's time to end the show. Good night. Nice meeting with you.
Yeah.
The journey of William to the Man in Black is one of my favorite parts of the show because that's always been kind of something that I've always wondered about philosophically as well. Like, you know, if I was in a situation where I had no laws, no restraint whatsoever, what would I become? And as I'm watching William in the beginning parts of it, you know, there he is. He's being the white hat. You know, yeah, that's cool. Let's go on bounties. Let's do treasure hunting and stuff like that and so on and so forth. It's like, and watching him slip was, to me, it was heartbreaking because it made me feel like, is there really no good people in this world?
Right.
Are we really a world of, if it wasn't for rules, if it wasn't for, you know, religion, if it wasn't for laws and stuff like that, are we really a world that unrestrained, we would just mess each other up like nobody's business?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because honestly, this is something I was just talking about last week when we talked about Arrival, and I kind of referred back to The Walking Dead. And yeah, I kind of feel the same way where a lot of these shows sort of do ask the question, like, you know, if there are no rules, if society if we're unrestrained, do we sink down into the worst versions of ourselves? And I guess that's an interesting topic for TV, for shows, you know, for stories. But yeah, I struggle with that myself. Like, do I agree with it? I don't know.
It's hard to say. I mean, we've seen examples of people that, in real life, we've seen examples of people that, you know, that become the worst versions of themselves if they had no restraint. We have no idea. But you see, I don't want something to just preach to me. I like something that tells me a story and still leaves it up to me. What would you do? It's not the beautiful thing about the show is it's not condemning William for going the way that he did. It's not condemning the Men in Black for doing the things that he's doing. It's just showing this is what happened. And he even explains to himself, I did this thing with Maeve and the daughter because I wanted to see if I could truly be evil.
Yeah. And incidentally, too, well, go ahead. I don't want to...
No, that's cool. And in the end, the whole journey of William was he wants to know if he is truly capable of being inhuman as he became as the Man in Black. And I think that's the whole reason for the journey for the maze. He wants the last scene in the show, at the end of the series, at the end of the first season, is there's Dolores. She's got her gun. She's just shot Dr. Ford and is starting to pick people off. And in the distance is a whole bunch of other robots coming out. And Clementine takes a shot at the Man in Black and hits him in the shoulder. And it's like he's bleeding. And Ed Harris, God bless Ed Harris. I can't imagine anybody else in that part. He's like, what? And then he looks and he just smiles. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
this is his opportunity to truly see, can he be evil? I think that's what this journey with him is. Am I really evil, or is it just because this is all a construct, it's fake? Because when he fell for Dolores, he fell for the fantasy. And I think the reason why he went off the deep end was once he realized that it was fake, it was like, well, what's the point? So This journey of his, I feel, at least, is the journey of him to realize, am I truly evil, or am I just a product of getting caught up in a fantasy?
Yeah, and incidentally, too, I do think it wasn't just a matter of him being a rotten SOB, because honestly, I mean, when you watch the show, most of the guys in the show are all rotten SOBs, but he was the one who was the nice guy, and I think if I'm reading it correctly, it took some frustration and some heartbreak on his point to sort of start him on that journey. Because there was the point where, again, he's while everybody else is just running, what do they say, shooting and screwing everything in sight, he kind of took to this one girl, and he was protecting her and rescuing her the whole time. And then at the end, when he runs into her again, she says, "Hi, nice to meet you," or something. And he realizes, oh my God, this, he was duped, and this is all just a game, and she's a robot, and I think that was the trigger, I think, that sort of sent him on that spiral.
And yet, in the real world, there's allusions to the fact that his company, does tremendous charity work and is very helpful to people in the real world. There was that one scene where the Man in Black and there's a bunch of other people, a posse or something like that together, and a man approaches him saying, "Sir, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of your foundation," and Ed Harris basically tells him, "Shut the fuck up. That's out there. We're in here." Right. All right? And that was like, there's still goodness within him.
Which incidentally is kind of odd. It was odd that happened too, because the vibe that you sort of get almost is that he's sort of been here all the time since, and you wonder, like, well, how would he have time to go out and have a life other than this? Because he almost sort of had this feel like he's basically just living here now, like he's that rich, he's been that rich, and he didn't have to ever go home and just didn't want to.
It's funny. I'm planning on doing a rewatch of it again just before the show comes out. I'm going to see if I can try to calculate how long we're talking about the Man in Black was actually in there. I mean, most vacations are 2 weeks. Could the events of the 10 episodes, and that's really all it was 10 episodes, taking place in 2 weeks? Sure, why not? If he's really that FU rich, is it out of line to say that he could have taken like a month off of work to come and vacation there? There's nothing saying that. The presidents usually take the month of August off because Congress shuts down. So who's to say that a guy who runs a company couldn't take a month off, and just shoot and screw, so to speak?
Right.
But he's got to be able to afford it. I mean, they've alluded on many occasions that it's like $40,000 a day. So that's something. If Westworld ever came true, you and I would never be going there.
Welcome to Westworld. No orientation. No guidebook. All our hosts are here for you.
This show is really amazing too, because even just the conversations between like Anthony Hopkins and his partner, whose name thank you very much, Jeffrey Wright, who played Felix Leiter. Hello, how do I not remember that?
A decent Felix Leiter too.
A rare decent, yeah. But even just the early conversations between them. I mean, there's a line in the beginning when he said something like, if you're gonna play God, be prepared to deal with the devil, or something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was the dialogue and the conversations in this film really were riveting. And I swear, Anthony Hopkins is amazing. As soon as he starts talking, I'm just mesmerized. Like he could just read the phone book, and I'm glued to it.
Oh God, I mean, I'm tongue-tied here because it's like he's this kindly, grandfatherly character with just this slight undertone of menace.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, geez, he's kind of all good and stuff like that. Yet you kind of feel like there's a knife. He's holding a knife behind his back, and the minute you turn, he will slit your throat and drink your goddamn blood.
The parallel with him that I find kind of fascinating is, honestly, they kind of make a parallel. Well, maybe that's not even the right word. He's essentially God. I mean, he is God of this world. He's the architect. He's the creator of this world. And as he speaks, you do sort of wonder, it's almost like, sometimes I say to myself, like, is God really that concerned with all the goings-on of man? And you gotta figure, God's got bigger fish to fry than every little thing that goes on here. You have to assume that there's sort of a hands-off kind of thing where it's almost like watching a surgeon. Like you and I might be squeamish at the sight of blood, but a surgeon will just go in and slice somebody wide open without even really blinking. Mm-hmm. And you have to say to yourself, like, and that was sort of how he plays this, where he's happy to sit and have a conversation with any one of these robots, and he's happy to say, "I'll take your pain away." But he himself is not really going to get that worked up, because he's seen too much, he knows too much, he knows what is really going on behind the eyes of these things, these robots, creatures, whatever. So yeah, I mean, that coldness is kind of almost eerie on a different level, if that makes sense.
No, it makes plenty of good sense. He just like a god who's just he he shoulders the responsibility of his creations. He respects them. He loves them. But maybe he's tired of them. Maybe he's trying to find something new. I liken it to like. Did you ever play the game The Sims?
Yeah, I do. I remember when it first came out, but yeah, it's been a while.
Okay, so in The Sims, you play the game and you're building this world, and right there you should have Dolores saying this world. You're building this world with all these different houses and characters and stuff like that, and you're creating these people, and it's all interesting and it's hypnotic and it's. You find yourself. You think of the initial concept of The Sims and you balk at it until you actually play, and then you find yourself drawn into it.
Right.
And you're now God to these people. And 9 times out of 10, I've yet to meet the person who hasn't done this yet. 9 times out of 10, you start thinking of ways to torture your Sim. whether it's put them in a room. Have them eat a dinner and then cut off the bathroom and then make no doors in the house until they pee themselves or anything like that. There's many different ways to do it, and that is part of the God principle that always intrigues me. Because it's not the first game that I've done it in. There's a game called Roller Coaster Tycoon where you can build this park, and it's all fun. And you can build any type of roller coaster you want. And at some point, you disable the track so that the roller coaster goes flying into a crowd of people. There are videos of it all over the damn place. But that was the thing. That was the thing with Ford with me. It's like he is the ultimate Sims player, but he hasn't quite gotten to the point where he's bored enough with them to do something. But if Ford is responsible, for example, for Maeve going off program, which is what my suspicion is, because people are. I've heard some people say, Arnold's still alive. It's like, no, you got to get off the Arnold thing. What I think is happening here is Anthony Hopkins has played many, many hours of The Sims, and he's decided, okay, what shit can I break now? I'm done with this shit. Let's see what else I can do with this. That's my own personal feeling as to where it's going. That this is. God has gotten bored of his creations and he needs to shake some shit up. It's why whenever the guy was talking about, hey, we have a new concept and this and that, so on and so forth, and he was like, boring, it's window dressing, it's nothing. And he's like, I'm going to come up with something even better.
Yeah. One of the things that I question about it, and again, it goes back to the essential question of the show. Would artificial intelligence get to the point, by its very nature, would it reach a point where it's sort of self-aware and essentially takes on a consciousness of its own? Now, as the show was going on, honestly, I kept saying to myself, at some point in the series, they're going to find out that someone somewhere did something where they kind of put something in there where they took like actual DNA of an actual person or something. I don't know how they would explain it. But I said to myself, the only way you can really do this is if you do put like some genuine human consciousness in it. Because I did say to myself, does it make sense that, like, again, I get the idea that technology is expanding in leaps and bounds, and soon, already we have things that we wouldn't have dreamt about even 10 years ago. I totally buy the idea that you could, probably in our lifetimes, I could see us seeing robots that you would actually have to talk to try to figure out are they real or not. I can see that happening in our lifetimes.
That's called the Turing test, by the way.
Yeah, and again, Ex Machina. Awesome movie. Can totally see that happening in our lifetimes, honestly. But then I say to myself, but how would the robot or the AI really start to get the kind of consciousness where it is convinced it is alive and it is a human being and it has rights and all these other things, unless we programmed it to do that? Because again, where's the point where it starts to believe it has a consciousness strictly based on, you know what I mean? I almost feel like, I'm sure you have. You ever see The Animatrix?
Oh yeah, good. Probably the best thing that came out of the Matrix sequels, but go on.
Agreed. And I loved the kind of backstory they did, where they talk about how the the machines became aware, became intelligent, and I thought the way they sort of did it was they never sort of acted like the machines were people per se, but they just sort of made themselves aware. Like they became aware that they, again, if you're going to make something that has intelligence, it will start to think on its own. That I agree with. But the idea that it thinks it's a human being, I almost felt like, okay, where's the gap between the AI from like the Matrix to these robots where they think that they're people? Like, how do you do that? That I kind of feel like that's the thing I sort of keep kicking around in my head. Is that something is that something we'll see? Is that realistic? And you know what I'm saying?
Doesn't look like anything to me. It's as simple as that. It puts blinders on them. The whole beauty of the idea behind the Westworld things is that it would never question its own existence. And anytime there was something that could potentially question its existence, it's like it's got blinders on. Prime example: what door?
Oh my god! And that was awesome. I tell you, I did not see that coming, and then the way they reveal it, and you're absolutely right. I mean, and that to me is fascinating too. Because that to me is something like you could hypnotize a person, right, today, and convince them that there is like he did, like there's no door there. You know what I mean? And they could be standing right in front of it, and they can't see it. Yeah. So I thought that was completely believable, and almost eerie how believable it was. So when that actually happened, I was like, oh my god, yeah, that was talk about a great reveal. I thought that was awesome.
The thing about artificial intelligence, and agreed 100%. That was just like I was sitting there. I was like I had my fingers on my chin. Whenever I'm seriously contemplating something I'm watching, I usually have my fingers on my chin and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like blah blah blah. It's like he's doing stuff in here and blah blah blah. It's like, well, what about behind this door? And he says, what door? And I just like sat up and looked forward. It's like, what?
right.
I think there may be something wrong with this world. Something hiding underneath.
You and I have similar but different backgrounds. The one place where we really diverge is in our choice of careers. You're an artist, plain and simple. You do amazing art. I am in the IT industry. So the one thing I've always appreciated from you is your eye for art and your eye for the artistic. This is one area that's kind of my wheelhouse. And the thing that I loved about the show is the fact that they basically said, we're talking about millions of lines of code. It's like, yes, absolutely. You have created a being. Artificial intelligence, even in a video game, is such a complex thing. It's to the point that whenever they make a game, it is literally one section of people. Your job is to build the AI for the game. They need to be aware of the environment. They need to know where to go. If you're getting shot at, they need to know to take cover, to try to wait for their shields to come back up, or whatever the situation may be. And that is a very simplistic form of AI. Where it's not just about conversations or anything like that. But now you throw into a future world where you're giving these beings the one thing that they beat into you as the series went along, like with the reveries and stuff like that, where she was just kind of like doing something absent-mindedly. That's part of fooling the AI into thinking that it knows that it is what it is, that it's itself. It's subtlety. It's the little things that you don't think about. The way I'm moving my hands, you can't see it, ladies and gentlemen, but the way I'm moving my hands as I'm talking right now, that's something, born and bred into me. When Joe gets contemplative, he gets this look, he kind of like cocks his head to the side and kind of looks up for a moment as if he's like thinking about something. These are the little things that were programmed into it, as well as these backstories. It's a tremendous amount of amazing work to basically fool the system into thinking that it is real. But in the end, it's not human. Is it alive? It's not. I'm not saying that these robots are human. That's completely different. Human has a certain form, but alive. There are many different forms of alive. There are creatures that can live 2 miles down in the Marianas Trench, and exist in a place that if we tried to do that, we would be dead. But they exist. Are they human? No. Are they alive? Absolutely. Life. What I like is challenging the concept of life. Is intelligence a marker of life? Because even that silly creature at the bottom of the Marianas Trench is intelligent enough to know to keep itself, fed, to not go above a certain height. Because once it gets above a certain height, daylight would basically kill it. because
Yeah.
it's basically existed in the dark the entire time. And in this world, you can absolutely positively build an artificial intelligence that can grow. Here's one you should look up. There was a chat bot that Microsoft was working on about, oh god, it was like a year ago or stuff like that, and they put it out there as a concept. And the idea was that as it talked to people, it would learn and it would shift and stuff like that. Well, this being the internet, the dicks out there basically browbeat it so much that it started spewing Nazi racist propaganda. And this wasn't programmed into it. This happened because of how they basically skimmed the system. And that's just a freaking chatbot.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, I know. That's a wonderful thing about working in the technology field. You hear this shit and you're like, are you kidding me? You can't decide what's worse. You can't decide what's more clever. The programmers at Microsoft that came up with this idea of a chatbot that would learn and was actually doing pretty well, or the scumbags at the places like the 4chans and the Anonymous and stuff like that just said, fuck it, let's have fun, and figured out how to manipulate it to do that.
Well, you know what's funny?
A perfect example of what Westworld is about. I don't know what is.
I'll tell you what. You know, it's kind of funny. You're reminding me of something too. I remember reading a quote a long time ago. This was like back in college, and I was reading. It was a book that was done basically. It was kind of about vampire literature and like, you know, what it is, why it works, and whatever. Why the fascination with it. And there was a quote which I'm going to mangle, but basically the idea was that people in general, when you put two people in a room, okay, the way they get to know each other, literally, they don't learn things about each other until they've sort of picked at somebody to find their limits. Now, and that could be as simple as just, hello, how are you? And then you would you like this? Would you like that? And the minute you kind of rub somebody wrong, where they say, no, I don't want that, or no, that's too much, or no, that's, you know, whatever. Even relationships, you know what I mean? You go on a date and you try this and you try that, and you find out what you're going to get away with and what you're not, and what this person likes, doesn't like. Really, the way you get to know people, whether we realize it or not, is by sort of chiseling away at each other and finding each other's limits. And in the context of the book I was reading, they were saying that human behavior, you know, the way we sort of need to sort of push people's boundaries, that, you know, that is what a vampire is, where they're essentially sucking the life of someone else. Whether we realize we're doing it or not, we do that. We do that all the time. And I kind of feel like that's sort of also the theme in the show, like you're talking about. Even if it's AI, we learn about people by seeing how much they're willing to deal with. So you put something in front of us and say, here, this is a robot or it's fake. You're gonna pick at it. You're gonna pick at it. What do you learn by just being nice to it all day? Nothing. You know. So I think that's why there's a natural tendency for that to happen.
You have to give me the name of that book sometime. I'd like to read that.
I would love to find that myself. Actually, I probably got it. I bet you I know where that is. I bet you Amanda has it.
All right. If you find it, let me know.
Okay.
But I think the worst thing about the show at this point is the fact that the new season's not coming out till 2018.
Okay.
That's the worst thing about the show.
Well, that's only next year.
I know, but it's funny how TV lately. You know how it used to be when we were growing up. It was always TV series start in September and they end in May, and then it's all reruns so people could go out, so on and so forth. Like the cable industry and the internet just basically turned that on its head. And now, I mean, I get to the point now, like even new TV shows. Like for example, I have there are people like telling me to watch Legion. You know, Legion, you love Legion. Legion's going to be awesome. I keep telling them no, I'm going to wait. And they're like, why are you waiting? It's like, because I am used to living in a Netflix world. When I want to start, I want to start it. I want to go through it. Because if there's one thing that I've noticed, like here's an example. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. As a TV show, the first couple of seasons of Star Trek Deep Space Nine kind of were a little slow, but then it hit a point where it found its stride, and then the show got moving. Yeah, they were all still standalone episodes, but in each episode, there was that little bit of connective tissue that took it all the way to the end of the series. And I realized, as much as I enjoyed the show when I initially watched it once a week and then 3 months off and then once a week. Watching it back to back just improves the show.
Yeah.
It feels more like a complete story. And it's made me fascinated with the idea that this idea of binge watching is now almost a standard. I can't watch... If I really, really love a show, I can't watch it and then wait a week. It would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I have to... Like, I loved Mr. Robot. I did not watch Mr. Robot until all the episodes were done and I binged. I love Better Call Saul. Same thing. I can't do it with Game of Thrones because I have too many friends that will spoil the shit out of me if I don't keep up with it. And the same with The Walking Dead. But a show like this, Westworld and stuff like that, I absolutely positively... So basically, I have a year and probably a year and a half before I will actually watch the show because I'm going to wait till all the episodes come to watch it. But this, to me, speaks of the quality that television has become. And I mean, we could probably have a long-ass discussion as to figure out the epicenter of that. Some people would say that maybe The Sopranos changed episodic TV forever, or who knows. But I love where TV has evolved to. I was worried about it for a while there when everything was reality show this, reality show that, and then
right.
it feels like there's enough variety out there. I don't have to worry about Honey Boo Boo or the guys from World Deadliest Catch or anything like that. I can actually watch a show like Breaking Bad and just completely lose my shit over the brilliance and the writing and the acting. Like,
yeah.
And now
Westworld. It is, very much so. And there is absolutely a return to really good. I think better than ever. And I'll tell you, we touched on this I think it was last week. We were talking about it because I was alluding to how. This was in my other podcast. Sorry.
You're seeing other podcasters, you bitch.
Yeah, well, basically, when I was talking about Casino Royale, and I was talking about the good script, and I was making the point that it's really more important than ever to do a tight screenplay. You know, I mean, so many movies would come out and they have plot holes, and they have this doesn't really make sense, that doesn't make sense. For the most part, that was okay, because again, you went to see it, and you probably never thought about it again for a long, long time. Now, because you can watch things so regularly, you know, there's an expectation that you're going to buy a Blu-ray or, you know, buy a digital download and rewatch movies over and over. There's an increased need to sort of make the stories tight because we're going to see the plot holes and we're going to go, oh wait, that doesn't make sense. And it's going to like, and I even said, you know, back in, remember Misery? When she says, they just cheated us. He never got out of the cock-a-doodie car.
And they always start with the end of the last week. And there was Rocket Man trying to get out. And here comes the cliff. And just before the car went off the cliff, he jumped free. And all the kids cheered. But I didn't cheer. I stood right up and started shouting, "This isn't what happened last week. Have you all got amnesia? They just cheated us. This isn't fair. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car."
I think there's a mentality of that nowadays because, again, that we're a little more savvy than we were years ago, and we're paying attention. So, I think the fact that we are binge watching, it forces them to do tighter scripts and do better scripts and smarter scripts. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. The screenwriter is finally getting their due. The screenwriter in the early days of Hollywood was like they were the IT people of the film industry.
Right, yeah.
Is the best analogy I can come up with. It's like, we need them, hate that we need them, but we need them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny, too? It's funny because even today, I hear people, like, if a movie is too long, like, if a movie is like an hour and 20 minutes, or I'd rather, like, if a movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, let's say, I'll hear a lot of reviewers complain that it just goes on too long and they should have shortened it up a little bit, which I never really understand. I always say to myself, I don't care if it's long if it's good. You know, I mean, if a movie is good and I'm not looking at my watch, then I don't care how long it is. Then give me more. And these same people who
is absolutely key.
Yeah, and the same people who complain about a long movie will sit and watch like 18 straight hours of a TV show. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's awesome that we're getting this stuff. And again, if it's good, I'll keep watching. I'll keep watching as long as it's good.
That wasn't exactly where I thought we were going to go when I brought up the subject, but I'm really glad with the direction we did.
Are we very old friends?
No, I wouldn't say friends, Dolores. I wouldn't say that at all.
The performances are great. Danny Newton's really good. I love how it's again, you get such a rich tapestry of characters too, because you get different characters experiencing the same general idea. Like there's a few of the robots are waking up and realizing what's going on, but kind of coming at it from different angles. So I mean, again, you get such a complex look at a theme. Instead of just trying to sum it all up with one person or just a few characters, you're allowed to have multiple characters doing multiple things and reaching conclusions.
And each character gets their backstory. That you get to understand. This is why Teddy is the way that he is. And oh God, Teddy breaks my freaking heart. How would you like to be the guy? My only purpose in life is to protect the one girl that I cannot protect.
Yeah.
How fucked up is that?
Hey, seriously. Oh my God. And again, I mean, I tell you, that's a part of it that I think is very interesting too. Talk about defragging that hard drive. Like, how many times is that poor guy going to go through that and not have some kind of residual damage? Even if he's not human or not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that was the whole concept with Maeve. I mean, the idea that she, it was a throwaway line in the series, but God, I love them for it when they said it. They basically, you're thinking to yourself, well, why can't they just like wipe and clean and so on and so forth? It's like, no, you don't understand. Each one of these is an individual program that has been shaped from the ground up. Every one of them has a basic core concept that teaches walking, tapping your hat and stuff like that. But the characters themselves were built from the ground up. You can't, and everything is interconnected within the programming. This is, as a programmer, something I can appreciate. So you can't really get rid of anything because it has the potential to cascade. When they're doing programming and stuff like that, dude, and there's a bug. And there's a bug in the program. Like, people complain about, this game's got so many bugs. It's like, you have no idea. They might have said, we can deal with that bug because fixing it causes 50 other bugs.
Right.
All right? And it was just, the idea that they got that concept of programming within this show just amazed me. And that you could give it that much thought that, yes, okay. So, yeah, absolutely. There's still that little bit inside of each of them. But it's, doesn't look like anything to me until these violent delights have violent ends.
These violent delights have violent ends.
All right, my friend. Well, then we will wrap up another edition of the Reviews Without Remorse podcast.
We've got a name!
We got a name. All right, buddy. Then I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.